everybody. Welcome today. This is a very special day because this is someone who I've been wanting to interview who has a good story and a lot to share. And first of all, I'm going to tease him a little bit because I think that you deserve a prize for having the most questions in Augusta Nation and on the masterminds and having the most creative questions. And every day when I listen, I think I am so amazed that he could think up these questions so quickly. So, are you a deep thinker, or tell us a little bit about yourself? First of all, who you are, and just a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Yeah, so my name is Kyle. I own the Moore and Norman locations here in Oklahoma. But yeah, I mean, as far as your question, like the masterminds, I get a lot of value from masterminds, and I am definitely a deep thinker. Like before I like make a decision or do something like that, I definitely want to like sit down and figure out like what my options are. So yeah, they've definitely been helpful, the masterminds for sure.
So, do you think about that all day? And like when you're out working, you think, oh, I got to ask this, or I'm really been wondering about this, but it's every day. So, you come up with good questions every day.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, really just like when we're out working or, maybe I'm like dealing with a problem or I'm like thinking of something that might happen, I'm always just posting on there. I have like a little shortcut on my phone so I can just quickly get in there, type my questions out and, Mike will answer them. So, yeah, I mean, just anything that I'm going through, whether it's personal, business, maybe like something I'm going through financially, I love the resource, and Mike's definitely he's definitely helpful. Like being able to break things down, and like he's very methodical with how he does stuff. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, and the questions you ask are questions other people have. So it helps a lot of other people when you do take the time to put them in your phone and then ask the questions on the mastermind. So
Mhm.
let's talk a little bit about you and how were you raised? Where were you raised? Do you have family?
Yep. So I was actually born in a military family. So I was born in South Carolina, but we moved around a lot just being military. So we lived in places like Italy, Korea,
Wow.
obviously South Carolina. We've been to Guam, England. So yeah, we've been all over. My dad retired probably 7 years ago, and yeah, just it's been great like living a military life, being able to experience a lot of things and live a lot of different places, meet a lot of cool people. you know um, I wish like when you're young, you're kind of going through those experiences and you're like, okay, I can't wait to grow up. But
Mhm.
looking back now, I'm like, man, I really wish I would have like spent a little bit more time like enjoying where we were at and the people we were meeting. But you live and learn.
Yeah, hindsight is 2020. Couple questions that I've always wondered about military families. How was it between your parents? Did your dad have a lot of real live action that affected him, that affected the family?
Yeah, I mean, so he wasn't like out on the front lines or anything like that, being military. He basically did special investigations. So like he would follow he was in the Air Force, so he would like follow the different branches around and do investigations and things like that. He's been deployed a couple times, but yeah, I mean, I think he has kind of gone through some of his mental things that he's had to work with, with PTSD and all that kind of stuff. But we've just been there to support him as a family, and that's really all you can do. Does that
Yeah.
answer your question?
Yeah, for sure. And well, because a lot of times when they're deployed, the mom is left to be, the all in all to the family. But was he home every day because you lived on base?
Yeah, I mean, so like when he was deployed, obviously there might be, a 6 month or a 12-month stretch where we don't see him. Um, but yeah, I mean, home every night for the most part. And, you know, it, with him doing like investigations, he would have to like get up in the middle of the night and leave and, like if something happened on base or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I got to give a lot of props to my mother because she definitely held it down during those hard times. And we never like went without in a sense. She always would like, when my dad was working, she would be there to support us or take us to school or whatever the case would be. So I got to give a lot of props to her for sure.
Yeah, and was there school on base for you?
Hmm. Yep. So basically, the base was like a whole self-contained city in a sense. Like we had commissary, which is like where you go and get groceries. We had restaurants. So like a lot of times, the military partners with like different companies like Burger
Okay.
King or Subway. You can go and get your meals and stuff. But yeah, there's a school on base, a clinic on base, really everything that you would need.
That is so interesting. I bet a lot of people don't know that, just the average civilian. So all the
Yeah.
people you would always see are military families.
Hmm. Yeah, so it's like you could go off the base, obviously, and whatever host country you were in, you can go and experience that as well. But yeah, I mean, we primarily just stayed on the base.
Interesting. So did you have siblings?
Yep. So I have a younger brother and younger sister.
And how
So
did you end up back in Oklahoma?
yeah, funny story. So as my dad was retiring, 7 or so years ago, my family was really trying to figure out, okay, where are we going to go? So our last station was in South Korea, and they were just trying to figure out, okay, where are we going to go? We could go like to Oklahoma, or like some people were like, oh, I wanted to go to the East Coast or whatever. But really, I think it came down to like we used to live in Oklahoma before, and we kind of knew what to expect. This was a good place to really set down roots. The cost of living is fairly cheap here, so yeah, I think we just decided to move to Oklahoma, and the rest is history.
That's great. So when did you first hear about Mike?
I've been watching Mike for a couple years now, kind of on and off to be honest with you. Like, obviously, I follow like a lot of the different YouTubers and lawn care and landscaping, but yeah, I'd probably say I started watching Mike maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago, something like that.
Did you have a background in lawn care and landscaping?
Hmm. Yep. So I actually have a degree in landscape design and contracting, and I've been doing this for about 10 years now. So
So you had your own company, your own brand, your own employees, trucks, the whole works?
mhm. Yeah, so we transitioned our old brand. I guess it'd be like a year and a half ago now, and yeah, it's been great so far.
So when you decided, what was the final thing that helped you decide to join the franchise since you were on and off with Mike and because you have all this other content that you've been listening? Why him? Why Augusta?
Hmm. Yeah, it's a great question. When I really sit and think about it, honestly, I feel like if I was to just kind of keep on doing the things that I was doing, like sure I'd be successful and whatnot, but like I really feel like Augusta is a brand and a company and like a culture that really can go far. So it's like I remember whenever Lee and I were on our initial call, he was like, "Why do you want to join?" And my answer was that I feel like we can do a lot more together, and
Yes,
I feel like Augusta is like a whole. It's way bigger than what I could do on my own, and
right.
I just want to be a part of like something great and the culture and the environment, like everything that I see from you and Mike. I don't know. It's something special. So I knew I wanted to be a part of it for sure.
Yeah, and how many guys did you have? And what was the transition like for them?
Hmm. So our old brand, I think we had around like 6 or 7 field crew, and then I had one office person. Um, we ended up actually losing a lot of those people through the
Mhm.
transition.
Yeah.
So I as we were kind of going through it, like there was different things that I wanted to do with transitioning and that kind of thing. So, um, I think really we only had one person that ended up sticking and transitioning with us, and that was my GM. But we ended up losing him as well this last year. So, um, yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. Were you trying to do P for P when you started?
Yeah, so as I was like dabbling in Mike's content, we were trying to implement a lot of the things that he was doing. So like open book management, P for P, yellow slips, all that kind of thing. Our trucks were set up like similar as far as having like the mascot and all that kind of stuff. So we were definitely like fanboying and copycatting for sure.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, just sorry, what was the question? I went off on a tangent there.
No, that makes sense. Having your team and transitioning over.
Mhm.
Um, I'm really concerned about your team, really, because you said you listen to the content, you bought in, you're doing all of these things and starting to implement them, like you said. Did
Mhm.
they not like that you suddenly were putting systems in place and being all attentive and changing everything?
Yeah, I mean, I think just being a seasonal business, like you lose people regardless, just
Yeah,
over the seasons. So, I mean, whenever we transitioned, it was the winter time, so it's like we had to let a lot of our guys go
yeah.
regardless. Um, but yeah, I do feel like, you know, I feel like the ones that stayed, they transitioned well,
Okay.
but I do feel like maybe there was some sort of like, oh, you're trying to push like all this stuff onto us
Yeah.
at once. So, but honestly, like when I think back, I feel like I wouldn't change that. Like I would still kind of go through the hard times and, make those changes because I know that that's what we need and like what is going to get us to the next level.
Yeah, that's really wise. A lot of people that join, it's very hard to do the transition, and sometimes you just have to completely start over because the employees are not gonna buy in. It's a whole different way of thinking, and their world is kind of shook up a little bit. It's not just the status quo anymore. There's a whole
Yeah.
new plan coming forward. So
Yeah,
how
for
long have
sure.
you been with Augusta?
So like I said, we transitioned last fall. I think January 1st was like our actual date of switching over, but yeah, so about a year and a half or so.
And was that January when you came up for training?
I believe we actually came up to training like in November or so of
Oh,
last
okay.
year. Yeah.
So you were able to start your first location or just switch your brand to the first location for that season, which would have only been last year.
Mhm. Yeah.
So for the listeners, do you have a growth model or a solo model?
So both of our locations are growth.
Yeah, because you can't join, you wouldn't want to join with the much growth as you had already to come into
Mhm.
Augusta.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I definitely think like if people are wanting to get into it, like if you have the money and you're ready to go, I would just recommend going all in on growth. Um, I like the solo model. I was actually kind of, on the masterminds asking Mike about, setting those up. But yeah, I think if you have the money and you're invested and you want to do it, I would just say go ahead and do the growth.
Do you have a family?
Hmm. Yep. Well, actually, I mean, I don't have kids or like a wife or anything like that, but immediate family, yes.
Yeah, so you've been able to take all of that time and really pour into the business, probably more than somebody with a wife or a family.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
I definitely consider myself like a hard worker, and a lot of the things that I think about, I think it might be difficult to um, try to like bring somebody along with me. At least right now in this stage of my
Yeah.
life. Eventually down the road, I would like to have a family, but right now I'm just in grind mode and trying to do what I can.
Yeah, and I've heard Mike talk about that, and I'm sure you have too. It's a decision you make once you are going to move forward with the family. Hey, let's do that, and I'll put all the effort into that. But for now, it doesn't seem like it would be fair to be with someone and then need to do what we're doing right now.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely think like a lot of times I feel like I'm a very intense person, and like as soon as I get an idea, I'm like going all in on that idea.
Yeah,
And I definitely do feel like it would be a struggle to, not only take care of the business, take care of myself, but also like remember that I have to take care of this other person too and make sure that their needs are met. So, yeah, I'm being a little bit selfish right now, but I feel like if I can set myself up well in these first, years, the rest of my life is going to be set up and, I won't have to worry. So,
yeah, that's so true. So the crazy thing is that you already own two locations. So what was the thought process that you're getting this one started and you decide, "Hey, let's do this second one already?"
Yeah. Um, yeah, that's a great question. So basically, whenever we transitioned our old brand, my thought process was, we're doing pretty well with our old brand. We can kind of transition everything over pretty seamlessly. And I put a GM in that location, and I went ahead and started our Norman location. And I learned very quickly that things don't always go according to plan, and
Yeah.
you kind of have to be quick on your feet when you're dealing with uh, other people and multiple businesses and things like that. Um, so yeah, I mean, I really wanted to move one of our higher level guys up into a GM position and give him more opportunity. It ended up not working out, just for some personal reasons. And but yeah, I mean, we're still going strong. We have two locations. I have two guys that we're kind of grooming and wanting to take on those GM roles next year. So we'll see what the next year brings.
So the one GM that you had, the guy that stayed with you in the beginning,
Mhm.
was he one of the main reasons you felt like you could start the second one because you could leave him there managing that one and you could go to the next?
Yeah. So I'm not gonna lie. I think starting a second location was a little bit of an ego play for myself.
Mhm.
You get into Augusta and like everything with Augusta is like growth, more
Yep.
locations, like higher revenue, more profit. Like, so to be honest, I feel like I kind of got sucked into all of that, and
Mhm.
I was pushing that guy to be a GM when he really wasn't a GM
Mhm.
quality like person. I feel like he could run a crew well, and he definitely my right hand guy, but not to the level of being a GM. So, um, yeah, so I just got sucked into it, and looking back, I would 100% do it again. But I was trying to force a square peg into a round hole, in my case, and um, it ended up not working out. But I would not change that experience and all the pain and the heartache that I went through for anything. Like, if anything, I feel like that whole experience of losing a GM and trying to um, grow the locations and that kind of thing. Like, I feel like it just hardens me as a person and allows me um, to grow in the future.
Yeah, so you expressing that will impact a lot of people because that's exactly how it is. You get into
Mm,
Augusta and you have the support from all these people. You've seen it happen. You've seen the examples of how it works, but it is impossible without a good GM. So this GM, he could lead in the field, right? But when he had
mhm,
the burden of command, he couldn't take on that responsibility. What was it about him that you think that he could not transition into a GM role?
mhm. Yeah, so I think with this case, he was a great guy. He had a great head on his shoulders. He wanted to do well for the team. But I feel like he was just battling some personal demons that he
Mhm.
and maybe some habits and some bad things that he was like dealing with. I feel like that's kind of the reason why he wasn't able to succeed in a GM role. I feel like I'm the one to blame too because I was pushing him into that role when very clearly from the onset he was very skeptical about even like getting into a GM role. But my ego was like, no, you're going to do it, and I was pushing him into that position. So shame on me for doing that. I feel like maybe if I would have had a little bit more time to kind of groom him as a GM, maybe it would have
Mhm.
worked out. But again, I feel like it worked out for the best, and I learned a lot. So that's really all you can ask for.
Yeah, in your opinion, do you think it's possible to go from a GM back to an employee in the field?
No, very difficult. Very difficult.
Yeah, because they've experienced that already, and then to
Mm,
go back and be it's not really a demotion, but in their opinion, they couldn't go back and just be a team lead or anything. So we
yeah.
found that too. I've never seen it work at all, not even once. So what month did he leave? Was it right in the middle of your busy season, spring, summer?
Yeah. It was, yeah, smack in the middle of our busy season. So basically how it happened is like we had hired him as a GM, I believe in like February ish of this year, and he ended up working until, let's see, I believe it was like mid-April. So it's
Mhm.
like literally the smack in the middle of our spring rush. And, um, I was working with him for a couple months and I just saw that his numbers weren't where they needed to be. He wasn't taking care of things like he should have, um, was slacking on some of his duties. And, eventually it got to the point where we just kind of had a mutual understanding that, hey, this isn't working and, you need to move on. So, he he kind of towards the end there quit showing up to work. So,
Mhm.
as that started happening, you just kind of have to pull the band-aid off and pull the plug quick. So,
And I'm
um,
sure that was really hard because you knew you needed to do that, but you also knew he was running a crew.
yeah.
So at the first location, is that where he was? And you were trying to go to the second location and build it up?
hmm Yep. So basically, he was running our Moore location, and I was in Norman, just solo, trying to grow the location. And yeah, I'm not going to lie, that process was very, very painful.
For sure.
As I kind of got back into the location, like, and running both of the locations, I found that our culture was like very bad.
Mhm.
He had hired some people that were very questionable and didn't have like good intentions. They didn't have like morals and values that I would want in, my company.
Mhm.
So we ended up having to basically strip the location down to me and one other person
Wow.
between both locations. So um, I think at the time we were doing like, I don't know, 25 to 30,000 in revenue just for one location, and
Mhm.
then around like 5 to 10,000 for our smaller location. And it was literally me and another guy. So
Wow.
um, yeah, it was very painful. Like there was nights that I would just come home and just, sit down and cry and
Yeah.
be like, why am I doing this? Like this was a bad decision. Like I shouldn't have done this. And it was very mentally taxing on me. But to be honest with you, like I wouldn't change that experience for anything. Um, I feel like I've grown a lot as a person, and through this experience, I've been able to like mentally harden myself. And I could lose my whole team tomorrow, and know that okay, you've been through it once, you can do it again. So, um,
Wow.
yeah.
Do you still have your office person?
Nope. So, transitioning over to Augusta, as you know, like Command Center handles all of your billing and paperwork, phone calls, that kind of thing. So, we ended up letting them go just because Command Center was going to be a whole lot more efficient and streamlined than having an office person. Um, and through like this transition, we made a lot of changes, and that was one of them.
So when people transition to Augusta, if they've had employees and they go to full service, which is an a la carte menu that you can choose multiple services, um, you don't really need an office person anymore, and they don't know all the systems. So if you still had them, you'd be answering all their questions on how to do everything. So
Right.
for both locations, did you use Command Center?
hmm Yep. So, we just went full on like growth mode on both locations, pretty much full service for both locations. I think I'm doing like scheduling right now, but pretty much everything else Command Center is handling.
And do you have a GM at your first location now, or are you just trying to juggle back and forth yourself?
Yeah. So that was kind of a question that I asked myself earlier in the spring as we were going through something or going through that process. I was trying to get a GM in at least one of the locations just so I could focus on the other location. However, nobody really stood out to me as far as potential GM candidates.
Mhm.
I had one guy that kind of came in the middle of the summertime, and he is going to be one of the GMs for next year. But I didn't want to just like shove somebody in the position like I did prior and have the same outcome. So yeah, I've been kind of running both locations like simultaneously. Throughout the year. And then next year, we will at least promote one person into a GM role for the first location. And then my plan is to have somebody. kind of shadow me under the second location next year, and then they can take it over eventually.
Yeah, I think that's very helpful that you shared the reason why you started your second location, because some people they're planning to get to 500,000, 800,000, and that's their strategic plan to then get their second location. But
Mhm.
you sharing why that you went in as like an ego move is
Yeah.
extremely helpful to people, because when am I ready to start another location? I might be planning on owning 10, but am I going to be strategic to get to a certain amount of money? If you started a third one, would you make sure you were at a certain income level for you, certain amount of guys, certain amount of trucks, or what would your motivation be?
Yeah, so if I was to, like, start a third location, or, like, do this whole thing over, I definitely would want to make sure that, like, our first location is, like, very solid. The GM is solid, they know what they're doing, the guys are in place, and, like, we just need to have a very good foundation as we're growing locations, and that was something that I very badly overlooked, like, starting my second location, because we had just transitioned to Augusta. We had just promoted a brand new manager. I was starting a brand new location that I didn't really know, like, necessarily what to do or how to do or how to manage a manager or anything like that. So I feel like if we would have done it over again or started a third location, definitely make sure that your first couple locations are, like, pumping out the profit and they're solid. Your managers are in place. Because honestly, I feel like, looking back this year, if I would have had that, I would have been able to go through not even half the amount of pain and trouble that I
Sure.
did go through, because I know, like, okay, my first location is pumping out 5 grand in profit or whatever, 10 grand a month in profit, and, like, I can use that cash to fund another location. I didn't have that this year. I was literally trying to put out fires on both locations, and I didn't have cash in the bank, because we had just switched over,
Right.
and had to let go of a manager that wasn't holding down the business correctly. So yeah, it was tough. So just make sure you have your ducks in a row. Make sure your first locations are set up correctly and they can support you just in case something is to happen.
How do you feel you've changed as a leader from before you came to Augusta, and then as you transitioned in and with your team then and now?
Mhm. Yeah, that's a good question. I feel like, coming into Augusta, maybe I'm a little bit more, like, empathetic, and um, I don't know. I feel like I just have a little bit more grace about me, maybe, like, with how I'm, you know, uh, moving with the guys and, like, talking with them, and
Mhm.
taking care of the team and that kind of thing. I feel like I've definitely grown as a leader for sure. On one hand, I do feel like I've been more empathetic, but on the other hand, I also feel like I've gained more confidence as far as
Mhm.
my leadership style, and knowing that, okay, I make a decision and this is the decision that we're going with, and that kind of thing. So um, I don't think I can necessarily, like, pinpoint specific things besides what I just told you. I just feel like in general, I've been more well-rounded, being surrounded with everybody in Augusta and, like, learning from everybody else. So
Do you encourage your team to listen to the content themselves? And the ones that do, can you just by watching them tell that they are?
yeah, so it's definitely uh, kind of joking around as far as some of the content and that kind of thing that Mike puts out. I'm still trying to get them to get on, like, the Audible and that kind of thing, but yeah, I mean, you can definitely see, like, okay, these guys are, like, bought in. They see what we're doing with Augusta, and they see long-term growth within the company. So yeah, I mean, you can definitely pinpoint those guys that it's like, okay, they're definitely, like, latching on and grabbing the content.
We are in November 2023 now. Do you offer snow services?
Nope, no snow services, but we are offering winter services. So if we do get snow, we will be shoveling driveways.
Nice. So you just shovel, do shovel and salt, but no plows or anything?
Yeah, so being in Oklahoma, we really don't have a lot of snow. It's like we might get a dusting of snow. Um, but yeah, I wish we were up north to where we could get the plows and the big trucks and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm sure your guys would love it. They
Yeah.
love it till they've pulled a 32-hour shift.
Right. Yeah. I think it would be for me too. It's like this is great, we're making all this money, but yeah, I don't know about those being up 48 hours straight and all that. So
And if you don't have enough guys, they just have to keep going, and
mhm.
it's pretty crazy. We did
Yeah.
that for several years. So going forward, what's your big goal? 5, 10 years. You are a
Yeah.
thinker, so I'm sure you have one.
Actually, it's quite funny you asked because I literally have it like dialed down. Okay, this is what we're gonna do this year. This is what we're gonna do that year. So my big 5 to 10 year goal is multiple locations. So I want to be shooting for like 5 to 10 locations in the next 10 years, and eventually moving out of state and just continuing to grow this thing. I tell my guys all the time that I don't just want to stop at 1 or 2 locations. Like I want to continue to bring people up within the organization to where they start at the bottom rung being like, general labor, and then they move up to being a GM and then maybe a regional manager. And then, the next step above like a regional manager, maybe being like a territory manager or whatever. So yeah, I mean, we have big goals in the next couple years and definitely want to be starting more locations, more profit, and just rolling it back into the business.
So it's good that we have the masterminds and Mike's able to share because we're doing those transitions and we're going to make mistakes, we're going to pivot, and you get to really follow our example and not make the same mistakes because he shares all the time, which is really unusual for the leader of a franchise to be that transparent for sure
Mhm.
and available every day to share all the parts of the business as we go forward.
Yeah. No, that honestly, that alone, just being able to see and like learn vicariously through other people has been very impactful for me. I'm sure if you talk to Chuck, he will probably tell you that I blow him up all the time, asking questions, like figuring out like how he does things. And I'm in his inbox all the time asking questions, and same with Mike. So yeah, it's awesome being able to number one see you guys like corporate put it into action and be able to learn from you. Just yeah, it's been so impactful and so helpful. I think that's one of the great things with Augusta is like we're so transparent with each other, and I know that if you guys are like dealing with something, Mike will put it on the mastermind or whatever, and then we can all learn. So I definitely appreciate that for sure.
How has it been for you intermingling with the other owners of Augusta Nation? Did you call some of them before you joined? And how have you found your relationship with the others in the organization?
Yeah. So whenever I first was thinking of transition, I know I called Dustin out of Illinois, and I think of maybe a couple other people. But yeah, I mean, it's been great, like intermingling with the other owners. There's a couple of guys that I really have hit it home with, and we like text every day or call each other or whatever. So that's been impactful as well. Just being able to know like when you're going through something, all the other owners may be going through that as well, and you can just pick up a phone and you know um, vent your problems out to them, and they know exactly what you're going through. So that's been really helpful.
Back to the winter services, have you had difficulty retraining your customers to let them know that we're kind of rolling right into winter services? And what do you say to them?
Yeah, so that's definitely been a pain point for sure, and I'm sure it's probably going to be that way for at least the next couple years. Just really
Yes.
trying to get customers trained, because in Oklahoma, like as soon as the grass stops growing, it's like you better not be on my property. So I don't know. It's just something you gotta get used to, and really you're just trying to upsell the value of like, hey, your property's going to look great year round. We're going to take care of like your shrubs, your landscape beds, blow the cobwebs out of your porch or whatever. Check your gutters, like So I think it's just trying to sell them on the value, and once they see like you're out there working on the property and their property does look good year round, I think they're a little bit more like willing to do it. But you just got to train them, that this is how we do it and just roll with it.
Yeah, it's a different mindset. It's unheard of. Nobody
Yeah.
does it, but it does save them a huge amount of money by not doing a whole cleanup before they start spring.
Yeah, for sure.
So you have changed as a person since you started Augusta, and you are a part of, probably WhatsApp groups and the mastermind and all of that. What would you do differently if you started over?
Well, if I was to do this all over, 100% I would join Augusta sooner. So, like, as soon as I saw that Mike was franchising, 100%, I would be the first one, baby. Um,
Uh,
yeah, so I mean, that would be like really what I would want to do, but um, I don't really think there's anything that I would do different. I think it's just trying to get into the systems and meet the other owners and um, maybe like whenever I first started, because I've been doing this like 10 years, right?
right.
So I kind of, I feel like I've kind of came in to Augusta like, oh, I kind of know a lot. I know it all, like whatever. And I feel like maybe I could have like let my ego, like, you know, not speak for me and just
Yeah.
try to learn as much as I can. I feel like as I've been in Augusta, like I've been able to kind of shed, that part of myself and really been able to learn like, hey, you don't know it all, and just learn and grow as a person. So um, I think other than that, like, that's probably what I would do different.
One thing it seems that you are really good compared to a lot of people that come in is because you did that so long and you were successful. Was it hard for you to quote unquote blindly follow the systems? You seemed like you transitioned really well.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I'm 100%, 110% bought in with Augusta and like what we're doing. So I feel like it was fairly easy for me to just flip the switch and like, okay, we're
Mhm.
doing P for P now, and we're doing yellow slips, and we're doing open book management, and all this kind of stuff. Like, I don't really feel like I had a hard time making the transition in a sense. Um, I think everybody is going to kind of have their own struggles though with
Yeah.
transitioning. So I feel like it was fairly easy for me. So
That is a real struggle for people that are interested because some of them, their biggest struggle is brand and how important and precious their name is to them. Was that an issue for you?
not at all. I mean, to be honest, like I told you before, we were fanboying pretty hard on
Yeah.
Mike, and like I'm sure you see in like some of the Facebook groups, there's a lot of people that like have kind of the same style of shirt with the same font as Augusta, and like the trucks are set up the same, and it's like they're trying to implement P for P. So um, yeah, I mean that was never an issue. So
Well,
yeah,
you said you're an all-in person. If you do something, you're going after it. So why not?
yeah, yeah. I mean, I feel like you just if you're gonna join Augusta, like you have to be willing to follow the systems
Yeah.
and like if you tell me something 100%, I'm going to go and do it because I value what you and everybody else at corporate does and how you're so willing to help us. So yeah, I mean, I don't care about our old business name. I don't care about what we were doing before. I mean, I'm in Augusta now, and that's what it is, and I'm going to follow the systems and do what I need to be successful. So
When you lost those guys that work for you, did you lose any customers? Because you said that was in the winter, but then you started your next season. Did you lose mowing customers?
yes, we did. There was a lot of people that didn't like the transition. They didn't like what we were doing in a sense, and they were used to kind of the old way of doing things.
Hmm.
I get it, but I feel like we can't cater to everybody. So it's like in my mind, it's like you're either on the ship and you're for what we're doing, or you're not. So yeah, I mean we lost people, but in the long run, it really doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, the demographic changes a tad because there's things that let's say, Grandma Smith, you would have stood at her property and talked to her for 45 minutes, but
Mhm.
you can't do that now. You can't expect your guys to do that on P for P. And the same with having command center. If you have that Grandma Smith calling and talking for 45 minutes, that costs you a lot of money.
Yeah.
So I found for myself, we had to actually recommend other people and gently encourage them to move on because we don't have that kind of time, and that's still the expectation that the customer has.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. And I wouldn't say that it's been, like, easy as far as losing some of those customers, but, again, you gotta do what you gotta do, and I know that this is the path to be successful. I mean, it's been proven,
Yes.
so yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So what kind of things do you listen to encourage yourself and to grow as a person and then in the business as well?
So I'm a lifelong learner. I listen to a lot of YouTube, a lot of audiobooks. Um, I would probably say like YouTube is like my big thing. So I'm typically on YouTube every night, trying to absorb as much content and knowledge as I can, whether it's like how to be a better leader, how to be better with money, how to grow your business. Obviously, I listen to a lot of Mike's content. I mean, it's like religious that every day Mike puts out a mastermind, I'm listening to it. So
Mhm.
um, I feel like you kind of have to be a lifelong learner in a sense if you're wanting to improve yourself and grow, and that's just how I do it. And I really am trying to push like my team to do that as well because I've found that you can only grow up to like your level of competency, right? So
Mhm.
if you ever want to do something great and build something big, like you always have to be learning, always have to be growing, and always having to be like molding yourself as a person.
Yeah, that's so true. And a lot of us are too proud and stubborn to realize that we have a long ways to go. And the more we
Hmm.
learn, the more we know we need to learn more. And
Yeah.
Augusta does change so fast and transition so fast and pivot. And I have learned that if I'm not immersing myself in growth, I'll never be able to pivot like that
Hmm.
emotionally with my schedule, anything. To buy in is, Mike and I talk about all that all the time. We are just working 7 days a week, but we have to understand that not everybody can or wants to. And so we have to be that for them and try to inspire them. But also, especially right now, we've had that with the team. Like, you can't push them to sell their soul to something when they do have a whole other life
Sure.
besides this. So, like for you right now, you're able to spend the time and pour into it, like you said, and know that that other life is going to come later after you've built this, and that should be a little easier then.
Yeah.
So I know people would ask, so where are you in trucks, guys, and like revenue in each of these locations?
Hmm. Yeah. So for our primary location and more, we're doing about 30-ish thousand in revenue. We have two trucks right now. Well, two and a half trucks. And honestly, we've been kind of running a skeleton crew all year, just trying to stack as much profit as we can. I'm doing a lot of the field work myself, just to try to um, salvage like the year.
Yeah.
So the springtime is definitely like your time where you need to be like setting the groundwork for the rest of the year. We didn't get that, and so I've just been doing whatever I can to try to um, stack cash in the bank account. Really, for our smaller location, we were doing about 10,000 ish per month in revenue. Ideally, we need to be around like 20 to 25,000, but I fully expect us to be doing that next year. And that smaller location had anywhere from 1 to 2 guys working, just one truck. So
Do you do projects?
no, well, we don't do big projects anymore. So with our old brand, that was primarily what we did. So like patios or planting, sod work, like we did all those big projects. we don't do that anymore. So we just do like basic services, mowing, maintenance, trimming flower beds, pulling weeds, that kind of thing. Um, so I'm kind of struggling, like, because those big projects are like where the big money is at, and that's how I've built my business up to this point. But I'm struggling on, do I want to kind of add a couple of those small big projects back in, or do I just want to like make it easy, let a GM have, the simple services and just let them run with it? I'm still trying to decide what I want to do with that.
Your plan for the upcoming year, is it full on pedal to the metal growth, or are you just gonna try to still salvage and have some just steady income coming in?
No, so we definitely want to grow for sure. I'm going to be pushing all of our guys really hard just to grow and continue to expand. This year has been pretty difficult for me, like mentally, because every year it's like we've always been growing and we've always been like hitting higher revenue numbers, doing bigger jobs, that kind of thing. And this year we've been kind of like uh, stagnant because I've been trying to do everything in the business. And um, I say that like we do definitely want to continue growing. Ideally, if we can set up a third location at the end of next year. I don't know if we're going to do that. It really just kind of hinges on how well we do this next year. Stocking away profit, making sure both locations are like firing on all cylinders, and just doing the best we can with profit. So um, yeah, we're definitely not slowing down, and we want to keep on growing.
What's your opinion about hiring, over hiring? It's November. Are you starting now, or do you feel pretty confident that you can wait a little bit and get people right before the season starts?
Yeah. Well, so right now, like I said, we are running a skeleton crew, just keeping our primary guys busy. It slows down in the winter, so we do what we can to keep everybody busy. Yeah, I mean, as far as like towards the first part of the spring, though, maybe like January, February, we definitely will start over hiring for the spring. I feel like that is something that we didn't do this last year, because as everything was going down with my GM and having to let everybody go, we just didn't have anybody to work. So we will definitely be over hiring this next spring for sure, and just making sure it's all hands on deck to get the work done.
Yeah, that's smart. So, if you had anything to say, you had a platform to talk about people that aren't sure about having an Augusta location, what would you say to them to encourage them, and or cautionary words to them?
Good question. Um, I would say, like, if you're wanting to join Augusta, there's a reason that you're wanting to join Augusta. Um, you know, if that is something that you want to do, I would just dive in head first and hop on a coaching call, or hop on a call with Lee, and do what you can to get in. This has been the best experience I've ever had. Like, it's been difficult, but I wouldn't change it for the world. As far as like, some of the drawbacks or things like that, I mean, obviously you're going to have to like change your company name. You're going to have to follow the systems. You won't have as much control in your business.
Yeah.
But I feel like, again, if you're wanting to do something bigger and be a part of something greater, like you kind of have to let go of some of that control. And I know that we're in good hands. So I would just say, if you want to join Augusta, I would do it. And I would have preferred to join earlier. Like, I wish I would have, but
Mhm.
you know, you live and learn.
Totally, totally. So, can you share a quote or quotes? What's your favorite?
Yeah. So, kind of my life motto is a quote from Wayne Gretzky. It's you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And
So good.
I play hockey and I love hockey, and he's definitely a mentor and idol for me. Um, I just think that's been like a credo of my life. Like, do what you can, like take shots, and yeah, I mean, don't be scared.
Yeah. Or if you're scared, just take the shot anyway.
Yeah, lean into it for sure.
Yeah. So I appreciate your time today. I know it's going to help a lot of people. I would say that definitely where you talked about the ego and were transparent about that. Maybe I'll ask, were you in that, when you were in that very low moment and you would come home and you're crying and it seems like, what in the world did I do? I went too fast. How did you pull yourself out of that? Did you contact another franchisee? Did you just talk yourself through it? Did you try to listen to something to take you out of that mental space?
Yeah, that was a very low point in my life. Um, Looking back, I think really I just engaged with the community a little bit more. Like with Augusta, everybody in Augusta, I definitely hopped on phone calls with other owners, and I mean, I was blowing up Mike on the masterminds, multiple times a day, like posting questions in there or whatever. So I feel like really just getting engaged with the community and knowing that there's a reason why you're doing this. Um, I just didn't want to throw away like everything that I've built up to this point because, like, let's say, okay, I throw in the towel because things don't work. Like, what else would I do?
Yeah.
You know? I don't know. Like, I don't know anything else that I love doing. Like, this is what I love doing. I love being a business owner, and you're going to get punched in the teeth a couple times. Like, that's just what it's going to be. And I think you just have to keep on going forward and just know, like, it's going to get hard, but it will get better.
Yes. That's a great note to end on. Thank you for your time today, and I hope you have a great weekend and a lot of success in your business.
I appreciate it. Have a good one.